I know we all know the principle that we gotta love ourselves the way we are, and that changing in the way we look is not gonna give us this crazy newfound self-love and confidence, that we have to cultivate that from the inside, that we're worthy as we are now, that we don't need to look a certain way to be lovable and desirable and worthy and all that sort of stuff. I know that we know that, but that's not to say that it's wrong if we want some more volume in the back. You know what I'm saying?
Now, I personally didn't know all those things when I first started, that you need to cultivate self-love, worth, and confidence from within. I had to learn that the hard way, but I 100% knew that I wanted to build some curves and get some volume on my stick figure of a build. I used that imagery very specifically because I had a very athletic body growing up and was just so flat, honestly, in the front and in the back. But my dad used to draw me as a stick figure because I was just that thin. And my sister would call me granny butt because that's how little I had going on back there. Now, was this bullying? 100%. But you know, that's honestly the silver lining that comes with an expressive, invasive, and loud Italian family. They just aren't afraid to expose your weaknesses, you know? So with that being said, I took it upon myself to shift my poor booty genetics, and that's when I discovered the world of weight training. So if you're new, there was my very intimate background on the history of my glutes. My name is Olivia. I've been training for the past 6 or 7 years now and have been a certified personal trainer since 2018, which, man, all of a sudden I'm freaking old, dog, okay? But anyways, if anyone knows what it feels like to desperately want to hit your goals and is willing to put in all the time, effort, and energy it takes, but just wants to know what to do exactly so you're not wasting your time, it really is me. And honestly, going back through the archives to get this old footage really brought back those feelings so potently. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys 10 tips to actually grow your glutes and see the progress you've been dreaming of.
So obviously you clicked on this video because you're looking to grow your glutes, right? So I think it's really important to understand how the actual muscle building process works, at least have some sort of brief idea, so it makes a lot more sense when you're taking the protocol that I'm basically about to outline in this video. So our muscles are not going to grow, change, adapt, get stronger unless we give them a reason to. Unfortunately, I know a lot of us would like to just be sitting on our butt cheeks and hope that they would grow. A lot of us would be choosing that option if we could, but there's a reason why nothing actually grows when we do that, because we're not giving a reason for our muscles to need to be bigger or to be stronger, so they're not going to be. So training in the gym is actually what's giving our muscles that reason to grow and adapt. And what's actually happening when we're training sounds counterproductive, because essentially what we're doing is creating micro tears in our muscle tissue when we're training. So we're technically actually breaking down our muscles when we're training, but through rest and what we're eating, that's what allows our muscles to then rebuild and get stronger and better and bigger, kind of almost like a callus, if you will. So kind of the step one of training is tearing down our muscles, which will rebuilding outside of the gym through our nutrition and through our rest, which we'll hit later in this video. But it's kind of like two sides of the same coin. You need your training and you also need your nutrition to have proper and optimal muscle growth. It's literally so springtime outside right now. I'm on our deck and it feels so lovely. I'm like obsessed with it. Let me zoom you guys in just a little bit. So the very first and most important concept that I really want to drill into you guys in this video is progressive overload. Progressive overload is literally a necessity if you're looking to actually build muscle and get stronger. Again, this is going back to the concept of how muscle building actually works. Like if we're not giving our muscles a reason to grow and adapt based on the stimulus that we're putting on it, it's just going to stay the same because there's literally no reason for it to get stronger. You also need to understand that muscle is very metabolically active. So if you kind of picture calories in versus calories out in the sense of a bank account, like it costs more money for your body, or essentially it takes more calories for your body to actually maintain the muscle mass on your body. So it's a very expensive tissue, I should say, to maintain with your body. So if we're not using it, if there's no reason for our body to be holding all this muscle tissue, like it's going to get rid of it. Why? Because it's very metabolically active and it's using a lot of our caloric reserves to just maintain that muscle mass on our body. So we're going to get rid of it if we're not using it. So it's really important to give our body a reason to not only build muscle, get stronger, but actually also keep it. So with that being said, progressive overload is essentially the concept of increasing the difficulty over time of the resistance and stimulus that you're putting on your muscles in order to help facilitate and initiate and provoke muscle growth. So another way to look at this is kind of continuously and steadily raising the bar, meaning the difficulty of your workouts, in order to keep giving your muscles a reason to get stronger and bigger and stronger and bigger and keep building upon itself. If you were to go and first time you're getting into the gym and you've never used weights before and now you're starting to use 15-pound dumbbells, you're going to see progress in the beginning because you've progressively overloaded, right? You've made your workouts harder than they were before with just body weight movement. However, at some point in time, your body is going to plateau once your muscles have actually grown, gotten stronger, gotten bigger, gotten accustomed to those weights, because our body is so brilliant and we adapt way faster than you think. There's going to come to a point where you're not going to be seeing as much growth and progress as you did in the beginning, because now it's gotten strong enough to handle that stimulus, so there's no reason for it to continue to get stronger and bigger. So what would you do? You would increase your weight again to now use 30-pound dumbbells, etc., and that's going to help kind of keep inching your body along this progressive process. Now, with that being said, there's not only one way to progressively overload, right? There's more than one ways to do this. So one is weights, right? Increasing the weight that you're using, but you could also be decreasing your rest times. You could also be increasing your time under tension, meaning slowing down whatever movement you're doing, whether it's a squat or a hip thrust, whatever the case may be. That's going to have your muscles be under that same stimulus for longer, which is of course harder. You could also be increasing time under tension by adding pulses in your reps or half reps in your sets. So for example, instead of just doing a normal RDL, you may do a 1 1/2 RDL. So you're going down, coming up halfway, all the way back down and going back up, and that's 1 rep. That's again increasing your time under tension. You could also increase the amount of sets you're doing. You can increase the amount of reps that you're doing with that same weight. So there's a lot of different ways that you can increase the difficulty, but again, the main message here is to continuously be increasing the difficulty of your workouts within reason. Now, that's not to say one day you're going to be doing 10 pounds and the next day, the next workout, you have to increase it by 10 pounds. Like, no, if that workout is still hard for you, don't feel like you have to be ramping up the intensity if you are not ready. So this is 100% going to be bringing us to our next tip, which is one I always love to get juiced about, and my trainer side comes out, because I just feel like so many athletes limit themselves mentally and they quit before they physically actually need to. Like, more often than not, your body has more to give. You are stronger than you think. It's your mentality and your mindset that quits before your body. My next tip is to train hard with intensity. This kind of really does go with the first tip, because it's honestly, I don't want to say it's impossible, but like, you're not going to be progressively overloading efficiently or the best that you can if you're not training with intensity, because you're going to have more to give. So I feel like this is pretty self-explanatory, but if you're not training with intensity and really pushing yourself, again, you're not going to be putting that stimulus on your muscles in the most effective and efficient way, and you're not going to be giving your muscles an actual reason to grow and adapt. I personally have gone through two strict, thorough, like 6 to 7 month bulking phases, and I feel like that's what really gave me the foundation of my physique and of my strength, and where I really learned and tested my limits. And I attest so much to the progress that I made during that time and the size that I put on, due to me showing up every day and truly did the best that I could in the gym. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to advocate for this toxic, like, overtraining, you know, not listening to your body. I think you can still do this in a tasteful way. I essentially am just saying I showed up and gave my 100% each and every workout. Maybe for one day that was me using 45 dumbbells with Bulgarian split squats, and then maybe the next time I went to do them, my best was only a 35-pound dumbbell in each hand. So yes, I'm lifting different weight based on what my body was telling me that day, but those 35-pound dumbbells on that second time around was the best that I could do. It was still a max effort of like 8, 9, 10, and so that's just what I needed to honor that day, and I was still doing the best that I could. But that effort is what really matters, and when I say intensity, it doesn't always have to be weights, right? Like that example that I just said was perfect, because my weight wasn't necessarily heavier than the day before, but I still was mentally there. My intention was still there to do the best that I actually can, and my focus during my session is what was still there. And so intensity doesn't always need to be in weight and how hard you're going. Intensity can just mean your focus, how mentally present you're there, and how intentional you are with all the movements that you're doing, because you will not see the same results if we're going in there and just kind of working out and you're lollygagging and you're thinking about other things and you're really not being intentional with your movement, as opposed to if you did go in there, you were training, right? You had a purpose and you were super intentional with every movement, you're going to be getting way more out of your workout.
Next, I wanted to get into the specifics of training so you kind of have a better idea of where you should be placing your efforts on the ground when you're actually in the gym, you know? So it's really important to make sure that you're incorporating different exercise varieties. So what I mean by this is that different exercises can be placed in specific categories based off of the range of motion, the movement pattern, the plane of motion that the exercise is taking place, and also where the most difficult part of the movement lies. So to keep things simple, I want you guys to focus on 3 things when you are training in the gym. I want you to make sure you're incorporating exercises where the most difficult part of the movement is in the lengthened position. I'm going to explain what this means, so just sit tight with me. And then I also want to incorporate exercises that are most difficult in the shortened position. And then I also am adding a little sub-third category here where I want you guys to be including exercises that are in the lateral plane of motion. For example, exercises such as an RDL, a lunge, a reverse lunge, a Bulgarian split squat, a normal squat, a leg press. The most difficult part of those movements, meaning there's the most tension and torque on the muscles, is when your muscle is actually stretched. So if you think about an RDL, when you're actually at the bottom of that movement, when you have a big stretch in your hamstrings and your glutes, that's when there's the most load and resistance and torque on your muscles, making it the most difficult portion of the movement, as opposed to when you're standing up, coming out of that RDL, when you're standing straight, that's technically the resting position, the regrouping position of that exercise. Whereas if you take something such as the hip thrust or a seated hip abduction or cable kickbacks or the glute hyperextension, those are all examples where the shortened position, when the muscles are contracted, that is when there's the most torque and load and resistance on the muscles. So circling back to the hip thrust, that's like the best example. When you're up at that tabletop position, that's when it is the hardest portion of the movement. You are really squeezing your glutes. You're doing your best to keep your glutes up. That's not the resting position. When your hips are down and your glutes are stretched, that's technically the resting portion of the movement. And then lastly, for things in the lateral plane, this is really important to help to create really a good glute shape and also make sure that we're hitting all areas of the muscles of your glutes. So not only the glute max, but also the glute medius and minimus, which are a little bit smaller glute muscles that are up in your hip. And a good way to target those is to be incorporating moves in the lateral plane of motion, such as lateral kicks, lateral lunges, and the seated hip abduction. When I first started out, I was notorious for overthinking my exercise selection in the sense of like constantly Googling what's the best exercises for glute growth and what exercises should I be doing and da-da-da-da. So I'm going to share some of my top favorite glute exercises and one that 100% helped me to see progress. So number 1, hands down, hip thrusts. If you're not doing hip thrusts, like you need to at least be incorporating them into your routine once a week. And then any sort of lunge varieties. This could be a Bulgarian split squat, a step up, reverse lunge, any of those things. Those are really, really good for glute growth. And then RDLs, so a Romanian deadlift. This is hitting more of our posterior chain, but this always builds my backside, baby. The glutes, the hammies. I love me a good RDL and really pushing weight on that. And then lastly, I'm going to say lateral kick variation. So this could be lying with a plate on your side. This could be standing with a plate doing a side kick. This could be a cable lateral kick. This could be a cable glute med kickback. Any sort of lateral kick, I love.
I'm having so much fun filming this outside. I feel like I'm just like hanging with a friend. So my next 2 kind of go hand in hand, but I'm still splitting them up because they are still different. So it is to nail down form. Form is so important. Form is always king. It's always going to be more important than the weight that you're using, because if you're not having proper form, you're not going to be appropriately and accurately targeting the muscle that you're wanting to target. And this is like huge, especially when it comes to glute growth, because there's so many different ways that you can tweak the same exercise to bias and focus it on different muscle groups, meaning you can make a lunge so it's more quad focused as opposed to having it be more glute focused. So there's little tweaks that you can do with all of these exercises that make them more glute focused. And also, if you're not very intentional with your form and you're not being very precise with your form, sometimes that really causes other muscles that are more dominant and stronger to overcompensate and take over the move, and it's going to inhibit you being able to feel your actual glutes working and actually have your glutes be engaged and be a primary driver in these movements. If you guys need to practice at home first, like, please do watch those form videos, go back to all of my week of workouts videos, because I take you guys through step by step. Playing is passing. I take you guys through step by step how to do every movement, so if there's a corner not to skip, it is form. So then my next one that I have for you guys is to master your mind to muscle connection. This is also so freaking huge. Mind to muscle connection is essentially meaning that you are able to recruit mentally the muscle that you are trying to target, and you're mentally focused on that muscle to help it engage. This is huge for like really any exercise. I was gonna say like hip thrust, but like literally anything, especially when I'm specifically trying to target my glutes. Like, I am thinking about my glutes. You need to be very mentally engaged during your lift, and I think that's why I love weight training so much, because it is almost meditative, because you can't help but be present. And so again, kind of circling back to that second tip, like, if you're thinking about what your boyfriend sent you and what you have to do the next day, and you're not even thinking about your exercise when you're doing the exercise, or you could still talk to someone while you're doing the exercise, like, you're not mentally there enough, and you're not going to be properly engaging your muscles, at least in an optimal way. I could do a hip thrust, same form, then I could do it again with actually practicing mind to muscle connection, and it will feel 10 times harder, and it will become a whole new exercise. So how to basically incorporate better mind to muscle connection is just to really focus on the workout that you're doing, on the exercise that you're doing. Be very focused, and again, think about and visualize your muscles stretching, and visualize them coming up to contract, and really think about the muscle that you are working while you are working it. Another great thing to do that will help is to slow down the movement. So go really slow. Again, exaggerate that stretch, exaggerate that squeeze, slow down the movement so you can actually focus on each component of the movement. And another thing that's really helpful is to actually touch the muscle that you're working. So especially something that's like a smaller glute muscle, like when I'm doing any sort of glute med kickback, or anything like that, I will touch, or if I'm doing like seated abduction, I will touch my little muscles that I'm trying to work on my glutes to help me remember to think about the muscle that I'm actually targeting.
In terms of training volume, meaning how much you should be training and how often, a good sweet spot is to choose about 4 to 6 exercises per workout. That's truly, truly all you need. I also was notorious for way overdoing that. And anywhere between like 3 or 4 sets per exercise is also a fabulous starting point. And in terms of frequency, I always recommend about 2 to 3 times per week, but please listen to your body, how hard you're training, your recovery time, because it is going to be different for everyone. So if you feel like you're not getting 3 quality sessions a week, totally feel free to drop down to 2. That's what I do, and it is still plenty for my goals.
I need to talk to you guys about nutrition now, because I literally physically cannot do, unless it's like solely a video around training, but if we're talking about like, oh, how to grow your glutes, I can't not speak about nutrition, because it's like the other side of the same coin. Like, you need to be mindful of your nutrition as well as being mindful of your exercise if you really want to see any sort of actual noticeable substantial progress. So the next thing that is super important when it comes to growing your glutes is to make sure you are getting your protein in. I'm sure 99% of you knew where I was going with this, but it is so important. It is stressed for a reason. It is appropriately hyped. I'll tell you that. Like, that's how important it is. Protein helps with so many different things. Protein is what's going to directly help to build your muscle, support lean muscle mass. It's going to help you recover after your training sessions, because what's happening when you're training is you're actually tearing down your muscle fibers when you're actually in the gym. So that's why it's important to take the rest and make sure you're eating properly so that your muscles can actually build up to be stronger and bigger and grow. Especially if you're someone who is an avid weight trainer, I'm always recommending that you're eating on average about 1 gram of protein per day per pound of body weight that you weigh. Yes, I meant that correctly. 1 gram per 1 pound that you weigh. So if you weigh 130 pounds, your ideal target would be about 130 grams of protein. Now, with that being said, the leaner you are, the closer you are going to want to be to that 1 gram per pound. But the more body fat percentage that you have, the farther away that you'll be okay to get away from that 1 gram of protein. So realistically, a more inclusive range would be anywhere between 0.7 grams of protein per pound you weigh, all the way up to 1 or 1.1 gram of protein per pound that you weigh. I promise you, if you want voluptuous booty cheeks, you just gotta eat your protein. You gotta do it. This meal is actually so good, and I kind of I didn't accidentally make it, but I kind of accidentally stumbled across the best combination ever. I really wanted a comfort meal last night, and Banza has this new mac and cheese, so it's made with chickpeas. So like in one serving, there's like 17 grams of protein in there, which is insane. And so I made that, and then I also made some chicken with it, and it's giving me like this creamy, like chicken Alfredo kind of vibe. I wish I had some spinach. I would have totally put that in here as well. Such a great way to doctor up a meal that traditionally wouldn't have been super nutritious, and now making it actually protein packed. Again, if I added some greens, it would make it have more of a nutritional value to it. That leads me to my next one, which is to take some supplements that actually are convenient and will make your life easier. I will never tell you that you need supplements. They're definitely not a necessity. You can definitely hit all of your fitness goals without them, but they do definitely just make your life easier, and they're a convenient way to help you stay on track towards your goals. So I just have two little supplements here that I wanted to share with you guys that I felt like really directly applied to the tips that I'm sharing with you in this video. So step number one is always a protein powder. This is like the most talked about supplement, of course. I personally use Blessed Protein. I really love their chocolate milk flavor, or also their chocolate peppermint flavor is really good. This is dairy-free, gluten-free, soy-free. There's no artificial flavors or colorings in here, which I always really appreciate, and there is 24 grams of protein per serving. This is a vegan protein powder, but I personally really prefer vegan over whey just because I don't really love that like milky texture. So this one, I just really love the texture of it, and the flavor is really good. And they also have so many different flavor varieties as well on the website if you're wanting something a little bit different. So I love incorporating this when I'm making smoothies or anything like that. I love just having protein powder on hand. It's such a good safety option, especially when you're wanting like a protein packed snack to split up your meals. And then next, my holy grail, probably one of my top used products from EHPLABS. These are also owned by the same company, by the way. Blessed is like a sister company to EHPLABS, but this is what I use for a pre-workout. This helps so much to like up the ante of my training sessions, especially if I'm really not in the mood and I need just like a mental and energetic kick. They do have a caffeine version and also a caffeine-free version if you are an evening lifter. This helps so much with boosting my energy in the gym, my performance, my focus is genuinely always so much better when I take OxyShred. I'm way more into my lifts. My mind to muscle connection is so much better. I'm always hitting PRs with this, and it just puts me in a really good mood. There's an immunity booster in here, a prebiotic complex, so it's so much more than just a pre-workout, and it's not going to give you any of the harsh jitters, any of the harsh crash, any itchiness, none of that. And that was a big reason why I didn't take pre-workout in the past, was because I hated those side effects. But I promise you, you do not get any of that with this, and that's why I've been using this. This is the only pre-workout I use for the past like 2 years now at this point. That's how much I love it. I love their passion fruit flavor. I love the strawberry margarita. They have a mango flavor that's really good. For non-stim, I love their mojito flavor, and their strawberry sunrise is so good. So with both of these products, you guys can use code LIVEFIT10 as well to save on them. I'll have them linked down below. And my last tip for you guys is to actually eat a sufficient amount of food. Like, do not be scared to fuel yourself. Your body really needs it during this time, especially when you're trying to build muscle. This is not the time to be restricting yourself or trying to cut calories. Like, it's going to be really hard for you to actually build muscle if you're really limiting and restricting your caloric intake. So you really want to be eating at least at your maintenance calories, and it would be even better if you can be in a little bit of a surplus. A really huge misconception is that you need to be in this really major surplus if you want to be seeing gains, or the bigger the surplus, the faster you'll see gains. That's not true. It's been proven that you really only need about a 250 to max 500 calories surplus per day in order to be able to help facilitate and enhance your muscle growth and your progress. It's kind of like wanting to build this huge castle with like 4 Legos because you've been restricting yourself. It's like you're gonna need all freaking 50 Legos if you're wanting to build something, or else you have nothing to build with. That's kind of how I picture it when it comes to fueling myself for growth. And this goes for making sure you're eating everything, not just protein, your carbs and your fat. And those are all 10 tips that I had for you guys in this video. I really hope it helped. I hope if you came here to learn that you learned something. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment them down below and I'll get back to you. Or if you want me to make this video kind of similarly about another thing in regards to weight training, totally comment that down below. I always love your recommendations. That helps give me ideas of what to film. If you're in need of workouts and just wanting a little bit more assistance and wanting to follow more of like a structured program, then get excited because something's dropping very soon. So be on the lookout for that. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. I'm sending you so much love, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Peace out.